Hello, folks. Thanks so much for being here at Heartland Yoga and online. I'm Kimberly, and tonight's class will be 90 minutes. Just want to mention that for all of you that didn't get the chance to read online, that it's 90 minutes. And if at home you have a couple blocks, maybe a couple bolsters or something equivalent, and a couple blankets, we will be going through about 4 restorative poses with a little contemplation. I'm here with Ren, and he's going to introduce himself here in a moment, but we're so happy that you are here in this practice tonight.
My turn?
Your turn.
Nice to see everyone. I'm Ren. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing here today. I guess I should say why I'm here. I'm one of Kimberly's students for a while now, and I'm a therapist in town as well, and we were talking about this topic, and we had this wild idea of, let's do this in community class. So this is an experiment. It could go horribly, horribly wrong,
nope.
Or really, really well today. So a lot of it was born out of, some of it's born out of stuff that I've actually just learned from psychological research, but then also born out of a pretty difficult time in my own life where I was coming to yoga for a lot of healing, and I kind of stumbled upon using some of these things that we're going to practice in my own healing, and it was a full body experience of healing. Like, I needed to heal the body, I needed to heal the mind, I needed to heal my heart, and so we're going to explore all those things. We're going to talk about, I think it was in the description, so the topic is validation, and sometimes I feel like, at least when I first learned about this, I thought validation was like cheerleading, like you're just supposed to tell people, great job, and that's really validating. We're gonna go a little bit deeper. In fact, I'm gonna tell you, you don't even need to say great job. You can disagree with the job that's happening, even in yourself. But we're gonna look at validation as just acknowledging that something makes sense. So if you're validating a friend's experience, something in your body or your mind or verbally, you're just acknowledging, that makes sense to me. Like, your perspective makes sense. You don't even have to agree. Like, you could say, I don't agree with you, and it makes a lot of sense. So sometimes as a therapist, we teach this to people like as an interpersonal skill. What I want to explore, and what's something I've been exploring in my own practice, is taking those same strategies and using them on ourselves. Because I found in my own practice, one thing I discovered that was probably the source of a lot of difficult emotions and difficult stuff in my body was I was actually constantly invalidating myself. So some of it was obvious, like self-criticism, which I'm sure we've all experienced before. Criticizing my own body and what it was or wasn't doing for me, criticizing my own mind, criticizing my emotions. But some of it was actually more insidious, or maybe insidious is strong, but like a little more hidden, which is like not giving my body the attention that it deserves, and neglecting my body or dissociating from my body, and realizing that I was feeling very neglected and invalidated by that, and realizing, oh, that's something we can do for ourselves. So we're going to practice some of these, and hopefully these are things you could try out today, but also in future practice. So
Thank you, Ren.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just noticing online that maybe our sound's a little bit bad, so I'm going to unplug and check sound. And then come into a comfortable seat if you're not already there. Maybe prop yourself up on a bolster. We will do some time, sitting in the first part of this practice. And as you come into your seat, just start to reflect on how you got here today. How you got to this exact moment in this space. And take a moment to maybe soften your gaze or even close your eyes. And just notice, what it took to get here. Where were you at before you got to this moment? Start to notice where you're at in this moment as far as the space that you reside in. Maybe you're at home in the comfort of your home or at your office. Here we're on the building of the Vitro. We're here in Heartland Yoga, the land of the Squawky, Masseuse, the Meskwaki, the Sauk, and the Sioux tribes, native land. Just start to recognize where you're at in space and time physically. Start to notice how you are arriving in the senses, noticing what you feel, what you hear in your space, inside and outside. Maybe what you smell, what you taste, as you just gently swallow and relax the tongue. And start to bring your breath forward in your practice with awareness, attention to how you're breathing as you get into this space. As you invite yourself here, you set aside this time to practice. And why are you showing up? Why are you and how are you showing up for this practice right now? This intimate experience, this time, in this space. Breathe in and breathe out. Do this a couple more rounds where you really feel the breath as you inhale and exhale completely. One more, just like that. And carry that breath with you through the practice as you start to bring awareness to the mind, your attention. As a yoga practitioner, we know that where our attention goes, our energy follows. So just notice how you're arriving in thought and mind. And where is this mind? Is it just limited to the skull? Just notice as we move into the first level of validation.
So the first level is listening with complete awareness. And we're going to practice it first with just our mind space, if you can, if you're willing. And one thing to keep in mind as you're trying this out, to give you some framework, is most of us know what this looks like when we're dealing with other people. So if you're talking with a friend or a family member, and some of us have had this experience where we're telling somebody about our tough day, and then they kind of just tell you how to fix all your problems, if you've been there. And actually it doesn't feel that validating. I don't know about you. Sometimes you just want somebody to listen and not tell you, you should tell your boss X, Y, and Z, or here's how, sometimes it's even your therapist that's telling you what to do, and it doesn't feel that validating. So in the same way, I've noticed with myself that sometimes when I'm checking in on my own headspace, even in yoga, my mind starts to go into fix-it mode. My mind starts to go into, okay, this is what I'll do to make it better. And actually sometimes that can be kind of invalidating. So what we're gonna practice is, what would it be like to just pay attention? There's no fixing, there's no solving, there's no advice giving to even your own mind. What would it be like to practice just noticing and just giving your mind the attention it deserves without jumping in with anything else? So just noticing if that can happen, and sometimes your mind, because it's been doing it for years, will jump in with some advice or problem solving, and just notice that and bring yourself back to trying to practice just listening. So we'll practice that for a couple minutes.
Receive an inhale and an exhale. Noticing the body, noticing the ground, noticing the mind and the breath. Guide your hands to heart center and begin to rub your hands, and creating a little bit of heat as you connect. First, bring the hands to the low belly as you breathe in, big breath in and up. Open the mouth and exhale. Letting everything soften. Once again, hands together, rubbing palms rigorously. This time over the heart center as you big breath in. Open mouth, exhale. And once more, hands together. This time over the eyes with a little space between the cup of the hand and the eyeballs. Inhale, exhale. And take your time blinking open the eyes and drawing the hands back down to the lap. A little bit of movement before we come into our first posture of rest. Taking a gaze over your left shoulder like you're looking towards your spine. 3 breaths. Breathing into this space of the neck and shoulders as you relax both shoulders away from your ears. Inhale as you come back through neutral spine, center, and then looking over your right shoulder as though you're looking towards your spine. 3 breaths. And inhale back through to center with wide eyes looking upward as you reach your chin. Open your mouth just a little bit to relax the jaw. And then as you inhale, draw your chin towards your chest and stretch long through the back of the spine. Breath in, complete exhale. Now using your shoulders, looking over your left shoulder now. Keeping the eyes open, just take in what you see visually. Inhale, complete exhale. Inhaling back through to center, keeping eyes open as you gaze over your right shoulder. Using your shoulders to twist and the mid-spine. Inhale back through to center, gaze up. Inhale through center, chin draws towards chest. And inhale through center. Beautiful. Taking a moment to slide off the bolster or prop and extend your legs out wide. You want to have your props nearby for the first pose, but before we get there, moving into a little movement for the spine. Legs are long and wide. Hands begin at the low belly. Point and flex your toes just to notice them here, bringing them into the practice. And then notice if you want to stay active in the legs, you might bend the knees or point the toes, or maybe even spread the toes and draw them back, hands to low belly. Inhale through center. As you exhale down the left leg, towards the left toes, any amount. Inhale as you rise up. Exhale as you switch sides. Now see if you can really be embodied as you slow down and breathe through these 2 sides. And even any rounding of the spine as you fold, to just notice the movement of the spine and the warming of the breath. This connection to breath, body, and slowing down. There's no hurry here. Let's do it on both sides once more. You might even notice you can rake your fingers along the legs, getting into not only the skin and fascia, but muscularly. Do one more on both sides. as you come back through to center now, taking the blocks and arranging these are going to look a little different. We're going to take a wide fold, and whether you need one bolster or two, it might look like this, where one bolster is up to your belly, and you fold the bottom bolster for the head, the chin, like so. You might be able to take a wider fold, therefore turning onto the right cheek or the left cheek. You might even bolster up some blankets under your head here. We're here for about 6 to 7 minutes as we move into the second level of validation. And know that you can just bring in the guidance of your breath, and that's enough. These forms of contemplations are optional, but let yourself just soften into the pose and change it up if you need to, of course. If you need another prop, bolster, or blanket, I'm happy to retrieve that for you. Take your legs wider or close.
So with the second level of validation, I encourage you to pay attention to your body. So we were noticing our mind in the last one. If you're willing, you can do whatever you want in this class, but if you're willing, you can bring some attention to your body. And what we're going to do in this level is we're going to accurately reflect the communication that we're getting from our body. So our body's always communicating to us. But a lot of times, like we talked about with the last one, we sometimes have a lot of chatter with that, or we question it, or we criticize it. What we're gonna do, there's no fixing, no making it positive or negative or anything. It's just acknowledging and just reflecting what you're noticing. So if you have pain in your body, normally, if you're like me, you want to figure out how to fix that pain or make the pain go away. For this, we're just gonna try to just practice noticing it. You could describe it. Like it's a prickly shooting sensation in my back or something like that. So those types of things. But no, right now we're not gonna interpret it. We're not gonna encourage or criticize. We're not gonna evaluate or fix or predict or even try to help. We're just gonna try to validate by acknowledging it and noticing.
feel the breath move through the body here as you notice the ground, the mind, and the body. And take your time unwinding from this pose of wide-legged fold. Maybe you start to rise up and just notice any rotation of the neck and shoulders. You might even draw the legs in and then extend them back out a few times. You might find a little seated cat-cow for the spine. You'll slowly move the props off of the mat to find your way to all fours. And once you come onto all fours, continue to bring the breath forward for some nonlinear movement, some intuitive, organic expression of movement on all fours. Before we set up for the second of 4 restorative poses, what else needs to move around as you breathe and then move? Your body already knows as we explore these new ways of interacting with it, as we continue to slow down with it and understand with compassion how to breathe and then move with the practice so far. Noticing the effects. Breathe and then move. You can leave all fours, down dog, or anything that you know services your body here. Breathe and then move. Balancing out this nonlinear movement for another minute. And taking a few passes of open mouth exhale, maybe even sticking out the tongue really long and wide as you do. A little informal breath practice, pranayama. And then coming back to all fours and maybe kneeling or returning the seat to the mat as I demonstrate optional heart opening poses or shoulder openings. I'm going to demonstrate 3. You might already know which works for you. This is a lower setting, a rolled up blanket under the shoulder blades, arms wide, where the chest is just lifted and spacious. Option to use the blocks. This is on jumping levels for some of us, but some of us this is a little bit more suitable for our spine, our body, one block higher than the other. Again, this nice lift of the chest. You want to keep your chin pretty aligned with the chest. You don't want to have a neck really opened up. So option to use 2 blocks. You can always throw a blanket over there. Or my favorite, which feels pretty soft, is to have the 2 bolsters, one the long way over the other, and then just resting back, arms out to the side or down by the sides. Maybe you cover up with a blanket, or at least the toes, wherever you might tend to get cold. You might even take one level of the blanket and cover your eyes. But you don't want it to be too heavy on the eyes. Yeah, once you get there, and no hurry to get there, right? You can always come out and go back. Add something or remove something. This is your time, this is your practice. Like, really set yourself up well. And once you're there, nice full breath in, let the exhale empty you out and soften you down and wide. Almost like you've made it with that exhale.
To open up this level of validation, I'm going to read a quote first. When we are experiencing immeasurable pain, fear, and sorrow, when we are vulnerable and tender, that is the very time to turn toward experience rather than to escape it. It is the very time when we most need acceptance and when we most need love. To love, then, as it is meant here, is to remain fully present with yourself and with others, even when difficult internal conditions arise. So if you're willing, during this pose, we're gonna work on validating our heart space. Whatever shows up there, emotions or other feelings. And one way to do this that we're gonna explore is to practice being curious about what's showing up in your heart space. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's really loud. And if it is more on the subtle side, or if it's even loud and hard to fully understand, approaching it with non-judgmental curiosity and seeing if you can expand on the hints that your heart space is giving you. Kind of similar to if you're validating somebody else and you notice that they were starting to get a little choked up. If they were a close friend or somebody that you cared about, you might offer them some care. You might acknowledge that it seems like things are getting really hard. We can do that for ourselves too. So whatever's showing up in your heart space, exploring what it would be like to do something similar, kind of expand on those hints that your heart is telling you, and you could say something simple like, I'm noticing that we're getting really angry right now, or I'm noticing that I'm feeling ashamed. And once again, just like the other ones, we're not fixing, we're just going to be present in love with whatever's there. And if it feels numb and nothing's there, we get to be present with that too. So there's no wrong way to do this.
your inhale and your exhale. A slow return to awareness of the body, the ground, the mind and the breath. None of it separate. And in this opener of the chest and heart and space, it might feel okay to start to bend your knees, bring the soles of the feet together, and just start to open and close from butterfly, just slowly. Maybe even coordinating the inhale to bring the knees together, the exhale to open the knees wide. A few rounds. You might continue to flap those butterfly wings, or you might find a little windshield wiper, the feet a little wider than hip distance, and they just float from side to side. And the next posture we'll take is a side lying position, depending on how you're structured with your props. You'll be on your left side to begin, and I'm just demonstrating one example up here of what that might look like. Where I have a bolster under my head, the width of the mat, and a bolster between my knees. Maybe another blanket under my head, and maybe a block under my elbow. On the left side here, you might already know what feels right for you. To be cuddled up and feel supported. It's not really about what it looks like. Check in with how it feels. Remembering that through this practice, you don't need to be still if something doesn't feel right. You have the agency to change it. Add or remove, or ask for help. I'm happy to fetch any extra props. But once again, once you find that place of feeling as much support as this space, these props, and your mind can offer, intentionally breathe in and breathe out to soften into this space, to arrive into the pose, to invite rest and contemplation.
In this pose, we're going to explore the fourth level of validation, which I often feel like is one that's, I know I need a lot, and I feel like our society needs a lot, and I think we all individually need a lot, which is validating based on history. So that can look like a lot of different things when you're examining yourself. Maybe something shows up in your mind or your heart, or in your behaviors or in your body sensations. And the challenge here is, can you find how that makes sense based on your own history? It can also be the history of your family. It can make sense based on the history of your ancestors. It can make sense based on the history of the land that you're on. How does what you're experiencing make sense? On some level, it doesn't have to 100% make sense, but on some level you can see how this makes sense based on history. And then acknowledging that. Saying, yeah, it makes sense that I would be worried about that based on what I've been through in my life. Makes sense that my body would do that sometimes based on my family history. It makes sense that I have these emotions sometimes based on the history of my ancestors. So noticing, and instead of doing what I normally do, which is critique myself a lot, just seeing if we can validate right in this moment.
gently breathe back the awareness of the body, the spaciousness in mind and heart, being held by the ground, and feeling that steadiness of support. And slowly begin to roll onto your back when you're ready. You might take a few rounds of bridge pose, just lifting the hips off the mat and lowering them down to be with the spine for a couple movements before switching sides. It might feel nice to rock or even hug the knees to chest in between these sides. You might be ready to go right into the other side. There's no hurry. You already know, and your body knows.
As we get settled on this other side, we're going to explore the fifth level of validation, which is validating based on the now. I think most of us have had this experience when we've had a rough time and we've had a loved one say, that makes a lot of sense based on what you're going through right now. And oftentimes that's like the most soothing thing anyone could do for us in that moment, that really tough time where maybe they can't fix the problem, maybe there is no fixing the problem. There's a lot of problems like that in the world and in ourselves. And just acknowledging that they hear you and they see that the current situation is a lot. Makes you feel better. So we're gonna see if we can practice that with ourselves. Can you notice things in your life that you're experiencing, whether it's heart stuff or body stuff or head stuff, that actually makes sense based on what's going on? And I'll give you a big freebie if you're struggling, which is, well, that makes sense based on what's happening in the world right now. It makes sense to feel a bit overwhelmed or really overwhelmed. It makes sense to be sad or angry. There's a lot happening. I think we all feel it. So it could be something like that. It could be something more close to home, which is, that makes sense. I'm so busy all the time. Makes sense. There's a lot of people who rely on me. Makes sense. I feel the way I feel right now. And one thing you can explore as you're doing this and with all the other validation practices, I notice for myself sometimes hard for me to connect with the validation on my own, and we actually have this tool that we use sometimes. We call it the compassionate being tool, and And the compassionate being is that sometimes you can see if you can imagine a compassionate being telling you that first. So that compassionate being is different for different people. It could be Kimberly, it could be Buddha, Jesus, it could be your dog, it could be your grandma. Somebody that you feel is an authentic, compassionate being. And imagine them telling you, yeah, that makes sense based on what's going on right now. It makes sense based on what you've been going through. And just notice if that feels different or if that helps you connect with the validation more.
Notice the breath in the body. And notice the breath fill the body as you inhale. And leave the body as you exhale. And notice your awareness here. Of the space around you or the space within you. And slowly let the breath guide you to the final pose of rest, Shavasana. Making any movement in between. You might find a little more bridge pose. You might also slide a bolster under your low back and let your legs dangle in the air for a little inversion before Shavasana. No hurry, no urgency to get to this final pose of Savasana and rest. Once you're there, a little breath work to guide us into just a few minutes of space and silence with no contemplation. Savasana meant to let all the practice digest. Nothing to hold on to or actualize or idealize. Let's practice pranayama here on our backs of Brahmari breath without the mudra, just a little hum on your extended exhale. Five rounds total. No straining. notice the body as you start to reawaken the senses. This feeling of touch, taste, smell. Even with eyes closed, remembering this space visually, the hues in the back of the eyelids, the knowledge of the third eye. Whenever you're ready, and not before you're ready, begin to reawaken the physical self in the ways that you know how. A few suggestions of rocking the head from side to side, or open and close the mouth. Maybe stretching arms overhead or reaching toes towards the bottom of your mat. Allow this gentle return to be intimate. Hugging knees to chest and rolling off to one side before coming up and finding a seat for meditation. And sit well. And in meditation, we'll do one breath work, 3 rounds of alternate nostril breathing for the last level of validation to carry us forward for the remainder of our night, our weekend, our life. And after Ren reads the last of the validations, just know that we will be in the vicinity for any kind of group reflection, but we honor those that will just leave the space after you've cleaned up your mat. But once you're sitting well, just feeling the spine, the shoulders soft, mudra or without mudra, as you inhale through both nostrils and exhale through both nostrils. Begin with an inhale through the left nostril, whether imagining the breath enter in through the left or closing off the right nostril. Exhale out the right nostril. Inhale through the right nostril. And closing the right nostril, exhale through the left. That was 1 round, 2 more just like that. Continuing to inhale and alternate on the exhale. Lengthen this last round a little longer. Inhale. A little longer. Exhale. One more round. After the next exhale out the left nostril, noticing the remnants and the effects of the practice as you steady into the mind.
This last level of validation is one of the most powerful ones for me, and actually one of the most simple ones to do for yourself and for other people. We sometimes call it radical genuineness. I like to call it sunsets versus math problems. comes from the idea that sometimes we treat our bodies or our minds or our hearts or our own selves or other people in our life kind of like math problems to be fixed. And if you've ever been a problem that needed fixing, it's not the best feeling in the world. It doesn't feel validating all the time. So the challenge here is, what if you treated yourself like you treat a sunset? There's nothing to fix. There's no problem to solve. You just admire it, have some moments of awe. You don't even need to like understand it. I don't understand sunsets, but I like them. In the same way that you would offer genuine compassion and validation to somebody that you loved, you can do that for yourself. And I often do little things that I would do for somebody that I cared deeply about. For example, if I wanted somebody in my life to know that I had a lot of compassion and validation for them, I might use a term of endearment like, hey buddy, or hey sweetie. And I actually do that with myself. Try to do it like once a day. Just put my hand on my heart sometimes, especially if I'm hurting. Be like, hey there, sweetie. Or even to parts of myself, you know, maybe you got a rough hip. You can be like, hey buddy. It's a little bit of validation for that part, a term of endearment. Another thing that you can play around with is, especially if there's something hurting, I'll just like put my hand on my heart and say, there. Just like I would do for somebody that I love that needed my compassion in that moment. We can do this for ourselves. It's a very radically genuine way of expressing love and compassion and validation. So if any of those ring true to you, you can try them. Otherwise, you can just kind of pretend like you're a sunset and notice what comes up with that. So we'll practice that for a little bit here.
moment to bring a hand to the heart space and just rub your heart, yourself, and compassion, connection. And take a moment to bow in reverence to yourself in this practice. Showing up to explore this new way of interacting, a way of understanding, possibly the self-study that yoga supports us in. We're so deeply grateful for you and for this ancient practice, 5,000 plus years old of yoga and meditation. We bow to each of you in peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And honoring the roots of yoga, the lightness and the darkness. Namaste. Please allow yourself time to reorient to the space and to return props and wash mats and fold blankets. And thank you again. We'll be out in the vestibule for any reflection as a group. There's also a little donation jar there for Ren and I, and we hope you join us again. Space in Heartland. Take care. There's also pamphlets out there, or there's a handout for the levels that we went through, and Ren's cards, so feel free to grab one of those on your way out.